There is a pattern in history that is not discussed in universities or on the news. A pattern that doesn't destroy armies, but destroys the foundation of every civilization: money. The currency you use to pay rent, buy groceries, build your life, it has an expiration date. It is a clock ticking down toward total bankruptcy. 3 empires fell in recent history, not because of invasion, but because their currency collapsed. History is not just repeating itself. It is sending us a bloody instruction manual. In 2025, the American dollar, the world's reserve currency, is following this exact script, stage by stage, debt by debt. It's almost as if we are reading from a blueprint written in blood and worthless paper money. In just 6 stages, the world's most powerful currency can turn into garbage. And here is the terrifying part. We are already at stage 5. What is, in fact, the death of a currency? It's not a recession. It's when trust, that invisible social contract, is destroyed. It's when the government demands you use the paper, but everyone knows it's worth nothing. Let's look at the mother of all monetary collapses, the Roman denarius. The empire lasted centuries, but the currency, it only lasted as long as it took for the emperors to debase it. 180 AD, the denarius was 90% silver. 270 AD, less than 1%. It was copper painted with silver. With every war, with every spending crisis, the emperor would shave a little silver off the coin and replace it with inferior metal. The result? People stopped accepting the government's coin. They switched to gold, real silver, or goods. Rome didn't fall because of barbarians. It fell because its money turned to junk. And more recently, Weimar Germany in 1923, a faster and more brutal pattern. After World War I, Germany had to pay gigantic war debts. What was the government solution? Print. The production of money was faster than the printing press could manage. The result? A loaf of bread cost 250 marks in 1918. It cost 200 billion marks in 1923. People used banknotes to light the fireplace because the paper was worthless than the firewood. The financial collapse opened the door to social collapse, and subsequently, the rise of extremism. 3 currencies, 3 centuries. But the cycle of money's death is always the same. This 6-stage cycle has one guaranteed victim: your savings. And you need to see where the dollar fits into this right now. To make sure you don't miss our analysis, follow the channel and leave a like on this video if you find value in this study. Stage 1 is the seed of evil. Excessive debt. An empire's currency only dies when the empire decides it will no longer pay its bills with labor and taxes. It decides to pay with stolen trust, the pattern rule. The government spends more than it takes in. The debt skyrockets. When the debt becomes too large to be paid by normal means, raising taxes or cutting spending, the government enters a mode of denial. In Rome, military spending and court luxuries were so high that the emperors had to clip the silver from the coin to finance expenses. This is a hidden tax. The denarius looked the same, but its purchasing power was stolen. In Weimar, war reparations debt and the promise not to raise taxes made the government print. The currency looked the same, but everyone's wealth was being stolen with every new note printed. The application to the dollar today, 2025. The U.S. federal debt is over $36 trillion. In 1980, debt to GDP was about 30%. Today, it's above 120%. We're in third world country territory. Worse, we are spending over $1 trillion a year just on interest, more than we spend on defense, education, or infrastructure. Stage 1 takeaway: the government cannot stop spending. If it stops, the economy collapses. If it continues, the dollar collapses. It's a perfect trap, and the pattern says there is no going back from stage 1. $1 trillion a year. That is the cost of keeping this farce running, and the debt clock is only accelerating. What happens when creditors stop believing? The answer is in stage 2. Stage 2 is the institutionalization of the lie. The central bank intervenes and becomes an accomplice. When the debt gets too big, the market panics. Interest rates go up. Who saves the day? The printing press. The pattern rule. The government forces the central bank to buy its own debt to keep interest rates low and prevent bankruptcy. The central bank becomes a money-printing arm for the treasury. In Rome, the emperor forced the mint to coin worthless coins. There was no central bank, but the power to create bad money was centralized. In Weimar, the Reichsbank, The German central bank was instructed to issue currency. Its sole function was to keep interest rates low so the government could borrow more. They became the largest buyers of the government's own bonds. The application to the dollar today, 2025. This is where the Fed comes in. Since the 2008 crisis and brutally during the 2020 crisis, the Fed has engaged in what is called quantitative easing, QE, printing money to buy treasury bonds and other assets. The Fed's balance sheet exploded from about $800 billion before 2008 to over $8 trillion. It is the largest holder of American debt. When the Fed buys debt, it is not buying with tax money. It is buying with new money created out of thin air. This is modern coin clipping. It is the silver being shaped off the dollar digitally. The difference between $800 billion and $8 trillion is the difference between a healthy economy and one in collapse. But where did all that money go? The answer in Stage 3 won't surprise you. Stage 3 is the elite feast, the silent inflation, and the wealth transfer only making the rich richer and you poorer. The newly printed money has to go somewhere, and it never goes directly into the common citizen's pocket. The pattern proves it flows to the elite. The pattern rule. New money enters the financial system, driving up the prices of assets traded by the elite. Stocks, luxury real estate, art. Inflation begins in asset classes, not at the grocery store. In Weimar, industrialists and the financial class connected to the Reichsbank had access to cheap credit first. They took out loans in marks they knew would devalue and bought real assets that would rise in price. They profited from the collapse. In Rome, senators and the elite had access to gold and silver before the currency devaluation. They held real assets while the common people received the copper denarius. The application to the dollar today, 2025. This is the era of the greatest inequality in American history. Nasdaq stocks have soared to record peaks, fueled by the Fed's easy money. The prices of luxury homes and investment real estate have exploded, making home ownership a dream for most. Multi-millionaires have seen their fortunes grow more in 2 years than in the last 2 decades. Meanwhile, price inflation for commodities and raw materials caused by the excess money had not yet fully reached the consumer. The rich get richer because they are first in line for the new money. They exchange paper for real assets. The rest of the population is left with the paper, waiting for inflation to arrive. That difference between the price of stocks and the price of your bread, that is theft in real time. But Stage 4 is what really turns inequality into a social crisis. Stage 4 is the destruction of the middle class, the end of the social contract. The people are hit by cost inflation. This is the most brutal stage and the one that turns a financial crisis into a social catastrophe. It's when the price of groceries, gas, and rent catches up to the speed of money printing. Asset inflation, Stage 3, translates into consumer goods inflation, Stage 4. The worker's salary does not keep up with the rise in prices. The middle class, the foundation of any stable economy, is crushed. In Weimar, cost inflation reached such a point that people rushed to spend their wages the day they received them, because the next day, the money would be worth less. The life savings of the middle class, teachers, lawyers, small business owners were wiped out. This generated unsustainable political fury. The application to the dollar today, 2025, we are here. And that is why the pattern is so terrifying. Housing, rent, and mortgage costs have skyrocketed, forcing millions to spend over 30% of their income just on housing. The rate of home ownership for young people is the lowest in decades. The middle class cannot buy the American dream. Food, energy. Post-2020 inflation was not transitory. It is persistent and is eating away at the family budget. Credit card debt has reached $1 trillion. Not to buy luxury, but to pay for basic necessities. When the middle class, the one that believes in stability and the system is destroyed, it radicalizes. The system has failed. The government is seen as a corrupt parasite. Money is seen as a lottery ticket that always loses. The middle class does not stage mass protests. They just suffer in silence until Stage 5. What happens when that pain turns into action? What Stage 4 really destroys is faith. Faith that hard work will be rewarded. Faith that the saving system still works. Faith that the printing press will not steal the fruit of your labor. In Rome, at the height of the denarius's devaluation, merchants began demanding payment in gold or silver from other countries. They refused to accept their own empire's government currency. This was not illegal, but it was a vote of no confidence.
When society starts creating shortcuts to protect itself from its own currency, the end is imminent. In Brazil in the 80s, hyperinflation was so fast that prices were updated daily. People didn't save the money. They exchanged it for goods, gold, or used the foreign currency, the dollar, as an anchor. The cycle of money's death does not wait for a law. It waits for the moment when the people rise up and say, enough. I no longer trust this paper. And what happens when that distrust turns into mass action? Stage 5 is panic in action. It is the moment when the elite and the people rush for the exits at the same time. And you do not want to be the last one out. Stage 5 is the fatal acceleration, the search for emergency exits. This stage is the transition from high inflation to hyperinflation. Money moves faster than light. The public, traumatized by stage 4, stops using the currency to store value. Everyone rushes to exchange the paper for any real asset, or for currencies perceived as safer, foreign currency, precious metals, or durable goods. The government, desperate, increases printing to solve the liquidity crisis, accelerating the catastrophe. In Weimar, the flight from the mark was total. Banks, trying to maintain the exchange rate, were flooded. The government, instead of cutting spending, printed notes with increasingly high face values to try to keep up with prices. The printing press became the only industry that worked. In recent Venezuela, with the devaluation of the bolivar, the public switched to the American dollar, gold, and even cryptocurrencies simply to be able to buy food the next day. The bolivar ceased to be a currency and became an instant spending voucher. The application to the dollar today, 2025. We have not seen the total hyperinflation of stage 6 in the US, but the panic of the flight has already begun, silently and structurally. Gold and silver. Global and institutional interest in precious metals has reached historic peaks. Motivated by the fear of inflation and debt, central banks of rival countries like China and Russia are buying gold at a record pace. The crypto effect. Bitcoin is not only a technology, it is a vote of institutional no-confidence. It is the first global-scale exit the public has to protect itself from a central bank that prints without limits. Stage 5 begins when large institutions and rival countries decide they will no longer be victims of the dollar. When the global debt payment system begins to fragment, like the de-dollarization movement, the flight turns into a stampede. Why is China hoarding gold as if the world were about to end? They read the same pattern you are reading now. They know what comes after stage 5. Stage 6 is annihilation, the birth of a new order and new tyrants. This is the moment no one wants to imagine. The point where the money game stops for good. The currency no longer fulfills any of its 3 functions: medium of exchange, store of value, and unit of account. The economy reverts to barter or adopts a new currency. Financial chaos leads to extreme political instability. The state, to restore order, imposes an authoritarian regime with a new currency. In Weimar, hyperinflation culminated in the total destruction of the economy and the complete loss of faith in democracy. The government stabilized the situation with the Rentenmark, a new currency, but the social and political damage was already done. The pain and anger of the monetary collapse were exploited by extremists, leading to the rise of Hitler and the destruction of freedom. In the French Revolution, the new government printed the assignat to pay debts. It collapsed. Monetary chaos fueled the terror, and finally, Napoleon's coup. The lesson: financial chaos creates the vacuum for military dictatorship. The application to the dollar today, 2025, stage 6 for the dollar would be the introduction of a central bank digital currency to restore stability. The government would say, your fiat currency failed. Now we have a programmable, 100% controlled and monitored digital currency that will solve inflation. You would have a stable currency, yes, but you would pay with your financial freedom and privacy. Every transaction, every saving would be under the eye of a state that is proven irresponsible. The money you fought to earn would become a tool for social control. The dollar may not completely disappear, but it will be replaced in its form and function. The finance legacy that America built ends with the loss of privacy and the total centralization of control. They will offer stability in exchange for your sovereignty. History proves that you cannot trust the government that caused the crisis to solve it. History shows us the pattern, but the voice of denial is always the same. This time is different. In Rome, they said, "We're an eternal empire." No one attacks us. The denarius is safe. In Weimar, they said, "We are the most intelligent and industrialized nation in Europe. We will solve this." And today, American exceptionalism. We are the world's reserve currency. No one else has the infrastructure. The dollar cannot fall. This is a lie. The pattern does not care about your flag. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. This makes it more resilient, but it also creates a bigger time bomb. The whole world holds U.S. debt. When the whole world tries to sell at the same time, the collapse will be faster and more catastrophic than any domestic collapse. We are in a debt situation worse than France before the revolution. We are in a deeper political and social division than Russia in 1917. And we are on the brink of a monetary collapse that follows the Weimar script. The only thing preventing total stage 6 is the inertia of the global system. But inertia is what makes the fall more painful. Inertia does not prevent the fall. Inertia only ensures that when the fall happens, it takes everything with it. What can we do when the system is programmed to fail? If we are at stage 5, what should you watch for as signs that stage 6 is imminent? Loss of Fed credibility. If the central bank is forced to cut interest rates while cost inflation remains high, stage 4, this proves they prioritize the government, debt servicing, over the currency. Foreign flight. If countries like Japan, China, or even Saudi Arabia begin to massively sell U.S. Treasury bonds, the game is over. They're exchanging paper for real assets. Domestic rush to real assets. If you see ordinary people, not just investors, actively buying gold and silver, stocking up on durable goods, and exchanging currency for any physical asset, the panic has arrived.
The action that proves stage 5. The federal government is desperate for revenue. It cannot cut spending. It cannot raise taxes politically. The only solution? Print faster. They are exchanging their dollars for gold and land. You should do the same. But what exactly do you need to do to protect yourself from stage 6? This channel is called Finance Legacy. We are not here to predict chaos, but to ensure that your financial legacy is not destroyed when the pattern is complete. The goal is simple. Exchange rotten money for real assets before it is too late. Precious metals. Gold and silver have no counterparty risk. They survived Rome, Weimar, and all the fiat currencies in history. They are the insurance policy against currency collapse. Productive assets. Shares in companies that produce real goods and services, energy, food, logistics, and can raise their prices with inflation. Avoid companies that rely only on easy credit. Currency hedge. Holding a percentage of assets in non-fiat currencies, like Bitcoin, is a bet on technology that resists central bank control. Location hedge. Do not concentrate 100% of your assets in a single jurisdictional system. Geographical diversification is the final defense against the tyranny of stage 6. You can ignore the pattern and wait for American exceptionalism to save the dollar. You can believe that this time it is different. Or you can read the manuals left by Rome, Weimar, and dozens of other collapses, and protect yourself before stage 6 is complete. Survival in stage 6 is not for the rich. It is for those who were prepared. We are at the point of no return, where the pain of maintaining the system becomes greater than the pain of letting it collapse. The final question is not if the dollar will radically change. The question is, what are you going to do with your financial legacy before the government changes the rules of the game? Ensure that your history does not end with the currency collapse. Ensure your legacy survives. Have you looked at the price of gold soaring like a rocket? This trend confirms the patterns. I'll leave one of the latest videos we created analyzing this trend. Watch it and stay alert. If this video about the patterns that repeat with every collapse has opened your eyes to where we truly are in this cycle, subscribe to Finance Legacy. Because when stage 6 arrives, when the government moves to reset the currency and impose a new order, you will need to understand what is happening, and most importantly, how to protect your family. See you soon.